What's up, Jimmy? How's the weather over in Florida, man?
It stinks. It goes back and forth, and stinks is the key word, Michael. Stinks.
Why? So you were saying about that, like what stinks about it?
Well, there's the gradual changes of season in New York,
Right.
which allowed us to, assimilate into the next season,
I like that word,
and and
assimilate.
and you get used to it, especially after half a century. And where I live, it goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you could be during a certain time of year here be freezing, and then the next week you could be looking at 70 degrees, and then it's back down to 40, and then it's up to it's weird, and I've had a hard time getting used to it.
How do
So
you deal with the warm weather though in Florida? Like, because it gets pretty soupy and hot, right?
yeah, like I said, you wind up stinking. You sweat a lot, you know.
Well, Jimmy, I want to introduce one of our new sponsors, Mando. Can you
Ah,
see that?
yeah,
Mando.
nice.
Mando gives you a whole bunch of product, right? Body washes. Let me see if I can swing that over there, right? We've got here a whole body deodorant, which is good, right? You're at work, you're sweating, I don't know if you have a propensity to smell, dude. I'm not trying to make fun of you. You
Who,
know what I
me? Not
mean?
me. How
Some
about you?
people, not really, dude, because I tell you, well, I will tell you this. We've discussed it before. I get very sticky and very caught up in things. And I
Yeah,
mean, when you spray this body spray on you,
yeah,
boy, oh boy, it makes a huge difference. Now, again, in New York, it's still cold, so I don't necessarily need it all the time. But I could imagine those hot summer Florida months is going to be. This will be
yeah.
your first or second time dealing with that.
Actually, technically, it would be my third.
Really?
Yeah, because I hit the summer 2 years ago. Don't forget, I was here in the summer of 2023. Then there's 2024. Here comes 2025. So I've experienced 3 summers here.
Well, then I bet you wish you had some Mando with you last year.
I need like a crate of Mando because I'm a fando of Mando.
Oh, I love it. Mando's starter pack is a perfect for all you new customers who are asking you to support Long Island's number one pro wrestling broadcast, Monty and the Pharaoh, right? Use the
Easy for you to say.
MATP code. That's
MATT.
MATQ, which is showing on right there on the screen. Use that. Support us. Show Mando they made the right choice in choosing one of the top pro wrestling podcasts or broadcast or television show that you could possibly have. And if you use that code, right, it equals 40% off, Jimmy. 40% off. If by
Nice.
my math, that's close
That's
to
pretty good.
half.
Yeah, I'll take
It's a
that.
little less than Conan's math, but
Yeah,
it's almost half. That's
yeah.
40% off when you use MATP as the code, which is on that screen. 40% off. Go to Mando. That's Shop Mando, ShopMando, and get your starter kit. Jimmy, how you can convince all your friends in Florida to order some Mando?
Well, first of all, I'll have to be upfront with them and tell them that they smell funny. And then I will highly recommend Mando because, you got to think before you stink.
With that, I got nothing else to say. Mando.
I'm a fan, though.
Eric family album, right? But I was looking, I guess through eBay. Do you there was a wedding album, your wedding album, I think. It's out there for like $50,000, like your actual wedding album. Were you
Mine are
married
too.
before? I thought it was yours. Maybe it could have been Kerry's. But it's definitely you and Kerry's. A whole bunch of pictures of you and Kerry. Sunglasses on, whole
Hmm.
bunch of stuff going on.
I don't know. Send it to me when
I
you.
I
I,
will. So let me ask you,
I haven't
what
seen it.
what did you think about the Iron Claw?
I thought it was. Fritz started that way back in the '50s. Uh, I think it's like any other big finishing move that you can, as a baby face, they can hold the claw up like that. People just went nuts. So and it looked. People didn't ever know it was a work because most people got juice from it. or that you if you're going to get the claw put on you, you're going to get juice. You know what I mean? So I thought it was great. I thought it was just something that was bigger than life with Fritz doing it, then the next generation of the boys. So I think where it cut off, Kevin, David, and Kerry used the claw, but when Mike came around and stuff, it just wasn't as, believable as it was from the dudes that were built and all that. Don't get me wrong, I love Mike and I worked the program with him. I turned heel on him, so great kid, but he never was into it. You got to draw the line somewhere of, it's a work, but still got to be into people's minds. Got to have a little bit of believability. You know what I mean? So.
Well, let me ask you this: what did you think about the movie that came out about? Did you get to watch the Iron Claw movie?
I didn't. It's typical Hollywood. The sad thing about that dude that produced that and that director, he never even talked to Kevin until the movie was completely made. They had shot the whole movie before he even spoke to Kevin. So this was all his. When you see something in Hollywood says, "Oh, based on a true story," that's about the only thing it is, because they'd spend their Hollywood. Now, here's the good thing about it. Let me go back. It really burnt my hide the way they portrayed Fritz. They portrayed him like a monster and was just, pushing them boys and all that. Nobody loved their kids more than Fritz Von Erich loved those boys. So, you know what I mean? Literally, I was there behind the scenes. Man, they would, every time they would go somewhere, they hugged and, told each other they loved each other. So that crap in the movie pissed me off about the way they portrayed Fritz. And, Kevin's wife, Pam, they portrayed her like a arena rat, like a groupie. And that was the farthest thing. I went to school with Pam, she was a year younger than me. And Kevin had to chase her for 2 years before she even went out with him. So, but I think the good side of it, I think it brought the Von Erics back in the light, you know what I mean, in the limelight a little bit, and people that didn't know anything about them got to see something of, a facsimile of what happened back in the day, So I think it brought them. The good thing was it brought them back. The bad thing was they didn't follow the storyline whatsoever. So
was there any level of strictness from Fritz from what you saw in real life? I mean, was there any element of truth? Because it's true, they made him look like a monster, but was he strict with his kids at least? I mean, where does the exaggerations come from? I know it's Hollywood being Hollywood, obviously, but was he strict?
He was strict. I think he expected his boys to say yes sir and no sir to him and all the other adults. But being strict, like, yelling and screaming at them and whipping them with a belt every other turn, that he just didn't do that. He demanded respect, but it's like you gave him the respect simply because of who he was. And he didn't, you say, you're going to do this. And, but he was no harder on his boys than any other parent. That he expected a lot out of them. Don't get me wrong. You're Fritz Von Erich's kid. You better act right. I tell you what, if they didn't act right in public or whatever, they would pay the price. You know what I mean?
Was he hard on you, Brian? Because I know you said
yeah, he was rough on me too. He'd talk shit to me and yell at me just like he would then. But he said later, I'll never forget it. When I graduated high school, he wrote me a deal on his stationery from the sportatorium. And he said, Brian, our sixth son, and talked about how I've become a great athlete. And, he's really proud of me and everything. That's the other side of him, that he would be what some people might call rough on you because he was big and gruff, but he was doing it for a reason. He was doing it to make you better. Like if you had a coach in high school or whatever that was, they saw something in you, knew you were a good athlete, and they rode you and expected more out of you than they did everybody else. It was because they saw something in you. It wasn't because they hated you and being mean to you. They were teaching you how to become better. And I think that's what happened with the boys. I think he maybe expected more out of him, but he got more out of him.
Do you think that the film accurately portrayed the brothers? Was because in the film it gives the impression that Kevin is the sane one, the good one, the angel, compared to the other boys. Was the portrayal of the brothers themselves anywhat accurate in any degree?
I think maybe somewhat. Kevin, he was the. I don't know if he of course nobody was an angel, but I think Kevin would of David and Carrie would be it was somewhat real, followed the storyline of what really happened, but a bunch of it it wasn't, you know what I mean? It was but Hollywood, Hollywood is not about telling it wasn't a documentary, okay? So there's a difference between a documentary and a made for big screen movie. And they did all the stuff the hype up stuff that Hollywood does, but like the thing with Kevin and Pam, he took her out to the truck and had sex with her the first time they met and all that. That was just, I mean, how would that, if you were married for 40 years and somebody said that about your wife, how would you feel when it was just not true?
That's a really good point. Let me ask you this. When I watched the movie, I felt like the Von Erichs story of their family could stand alone. I felt like there was too much wrestling. I felt like they could have really told a really good story, but they felt like they had to get in 35 minutes of wrestling between Harley Race and Ric Flair. I was like, there's no need for this. What do you think?
Right. I agree. I agree 100%. It's the wrestling was a given, you know what I mean? And the actors actually did a pretty good job in their portrayal of the moves and stuff. I was kind of impressed about how good the moves looked and stuff, for the movie. But you don't have to put all that, like they were talking like Kevin, and the world title, and all that Kevin couldn't do promos and David had to step in. That was garbage. I mean, he wasn't the best mic man in the business, but David never had to step in and do, promos for Kevin.
So they took a lot of liberties with the film.
They
Obviously.
did, and that's Hollywood for you.
Yep.
Well, so let me ask you this: how do you put the movie together and not even talk to the guy that's the main star before you when you finish the movie, and then he talked to Kevin later?
Yeah.
I'll say this: when I actually went to the movies, and I hadn't been to the movies. Right, we had COVID and everything. I got like years, and when I went there, I hated it. I was like, I just hated it. But I've watched it probably 800 times now.
Yeah.
The one thing I will say, they did a good job communicating how much the boys loved each other. I thought.
Yeah.
I took that home, and I thought there was some solid messages there. What do you think?
I agree. I went when I watched it the first time. I was hot. I was actually not furious, but it made me realize how much Hollywood will spend something. You know what I mean? But I agree that it did portray the boys and how much they did care about each other. And you might call it BS, but they love the fans too. They really. It wasn't something that hey, we love you fans. Their dad instilled in them, those fans are what make you. If you don't believe it, try doing something else. But those fans, without the fans, you have nothing. You know
what, Brian? It's funny. I was just thinking about that because I actually met Kevin for the first time, I think about a year ago, and he was such a gentleman. Literally took about 20 minutes talking to me.
Yeah.
And even speaking to you, the respect you have, you guys from WCCW, that must be true that Fritz really instilled in you guys how important the fans were.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I remember Fritz even saying we knew it ourselves, and you have to, without those people buying tickets and coming to see you at week in and week out, like Fort Worth and Dallas, our two shows that showed every week. Without that and the television, you at some point you have to realize that without those people buying tickets, I mean, that's your income. That's your portrayal of being over and over as a baby face or over as a heel. Your TV show is where you do everything to send out to the masses to get people to sit in the seats and buy tickets. But because every now and then Kerry or one of the boys would say something negative about the groupies and all that. And Fritz said, I don't want to hear you talking about the groupies and everything. He said, those girls come and buy tickets every week. So don't do anything to offend them. If you want to talk behind when it's just you guys is one thing, but if you're ever in public or doing something that people are going to see, don't you ever talk about the wrestling fans and the groupies, because they make you. And I think that instilled in me as well, so, but it's true.
Brian, why do you think that's, well, I'm not sure you're even aware, but why do you think that that's not a trait that some of today's wrestlers have with their attitude towards fans? Because some wrestlers say fans don't have the right to use any wrestling terms and they're not in the business. Look, we know we're not in the business, but what do you think about wrestlers who go on record against fans and their rights to have an opinion on the sport they love?
I think they're these days when people get signed up on a contract, so they're going to get paid no matter what. And I think a lot of these guys right now, they think they're way up here because of what the promotion has done with them. But you could go from hero to zero real quick if the office wanted to destroy you and beat you every week on television and make you back down to nothing. They could do it. But I think these guys are just nearsighted and they don't understand how the business really was driving up and down the road 7 days a week like we did it before. I think the respect, I don't think they have as much respect growing up in their era as we did growing up in our era in general. And I think it shows in their mouth, and they think they're all that when you're nothing more than what somebody has made you. So you got to do the work. Don't get me wrong. And you got to be able to get over. You have to be able to carry the load, but the respect level, if you're going to go up there and talk crap about the people that are coming to shows and paying money to get in these days, what, $100,000-$200,000 a ticket?
Yeah, it's not like that.
About somebody that's paying $1,000 to sit out there and watch everybody, you're insane. I think that's just, if I was running that promotion, that wouldn't happen. Or if it did happen, you wouldn't be working for me.
Brian, I want to bring it back to Mike a little bit. In the movie, they pretty much showed that Mike really just wanted to play music and he was kind of forced into the wrestling. Is that true?
I don't know if he was forced in it. I think it was more, I don't know if he felt obligated and did it out of for the love of his brothers too, and wanted to be, he wanted to get in on the deal too. I think the music and the guitar playing was what he really wanted to do. But I think growing up in that family, I think he felt an obligation to do it. And he put the obligation before his personal beliefs and his, what he wanted to do. So.
You saw all three brothers pass, right, at some point?
Four of them.
Four, so yeah.
David, Mike, Kerry, and Chris.
And Chris.
9 years. 9 years I buried four of them.